Hi guys, Samantha from Decima Tutorials here, and today I'm going to show you how to create black opal. And as an extra, we might create ice opal, but we'll have to see. But for today, we're going to be making black opal. So hopefully the camera is picking up here what this looks like. Hopefully you can see all the shine in there. So this is what we're going to be making, and we're also going to be putting it into a setting so that we've got a pendant at the end of it. So what you're going to need is you're going to need some opal, and the one that I'm using today is Ice Resin Opal's Fire Opal, and I really like this one because it gives off the really fiery sort of effect in the opal. So you will need that. You will also need some translucent clay, and you'll also need black clay. And that's about it really, for the moment anyway. So we'll grab those, and you put the black clay aside for the moment, and we will need to quickly roll out this translucent because we want to mix our opals into our translucent. So just quickly roll it out. There we go. Once it's been run out, we'll open up our opal, and I don't need all of this, so I'm just going to take off a bit. And you can see what an interesting colour that is. And you need quite a bit. Oopsie daisy, spilt some there. We'll mix that in. Okay, and then cover that with your translucent and almost make a little pocket in there for it. And then just scoop up the rest with your clay. Okay, and then we're going to run this through our pasta machine on the thickest setting to mix it in. Okay, rolled once, fold, roll twice, fold, and just keep on folding until you have it mixed in. And you can see it's starting to mix in already. And you just need to be careful because the ice resin flakes, they can be a little bit finicky and don't want to mix in, so you just need to have a little bit of patience as you do this. Okay, and then just scoop up any remaining flakes you have. Mix that in, and then once it's all thoroughly mixed in, you can move on to the next step. Okay, and so here it is all mixed in. So hopefully when I twist it around you can see the flakes. Now you want to add in the black. So first we need to chop this up into lots of little pieces, and you don't want to use this clay on its own because the amount of flakes that have been mixed in has it's made the clay fairly brittle. So if you bake this on its own, it will probably want to break apart. So that is why you wouldn't bake it just like this. Just in case you wanted to, I've already tried it and it can make it quite fragile. So definitely add in another clay. And in this case I want to add in black to get that black opal sort of effect. Okay, and we'll just chop this up. And you'll see that some of the flakes will come off. That's perfectly fine. Well, that will just get mixed in. Just chop it all up, and we'll chop the black in just a second too. And you want it to be chopped into fine pieces before you try mixing it together. Okay, and then once you've chopped up the two piles, mix them together. And I'd say it's probably equal parts opal clay that we mixed up to equal parts black, because remember that we are working with translucent here, and so it's not adding any colour itself. So it looks like it's quite a big difference here, and it's not going to look very dark, but the translucent does go very dark if you put it with black. So you do want to add in quite a bit of the translucent with the opal into the black, so that you do get a nice opal-y effect. Okay, then once you've put it in there together, just go with your blade and chop it up some more. Okay. And then I'm just going to press this together, and we're going to chop it again because we want it really fine. But sometimes you need to just squish it together first. And don't worry, you don't need to worry about keeping any of the pieces of clay sharp, with sharp corners or anything like that. It's kind of almost like a marble together. You just don't want it to be completely mixed in. So there we are. I'll just roll that together, and we'll chop this again. And we'll chop a few times to make sure that we get this nice and fine. And so when I'm done chopping and mixing, I'll show you what it looks like, and then that is what you will want yours to look like. You want it nice and fine. Okay, so in total it's been chopped about 3 times. So it's nice and fine. So now we'll just squish this together and make sure you do a good job of this. And just before I forget, you should, when chopping up this clay, use a blunt blade, because the opal flakes will dull your blade. So use one that's not sharp or anything like that, because you don't want it dulling up your nice sharp blades. Use one that's already been dulled. Just squish it together, and this is what we're going to use to make our cabochons. And now you don't have to make cabochons with this, you could just slice this up and use it in other projects where you're basically just having flat opal. If you're watching this and you haven't seen my boulder opal tutorial, you should. In that tutorial I show you what to do with opal, but not in a cabochon form. Okay, so you can see it looks almost kind of zebra-y at the moment with all of those stripes. Don't worry, all of that will go dark. Okay, so now we want to choose our cabochon. And before you make your cabochon, you should make a little test piece and choose the cutter you want to go with it. I'm using my third smallest convex spear, if that is correct, and this is a statement. So I'll have a link to this cutter. It is my third smallest convex spearhead statement cutter, and I'm matching it up with this cabochon mold over here. So what you'll do is you'll just take your blade, chop up a bit, just scrape off that as well. And then just bend it into roughly the right shape for your mold. I think we've got a bit too much clay, so I'm just chopping off a little bit. There we go. There, I think that should be enough. We might still have a little too much. Let's see. And then just squish your clay into your mould, like so. And now you want a nice flat back, so just take your blade and be very careful when doing this, and just saw across the surface to get rid of excess clay. And this is why I'm saying you want a dull blade, because doing that can dull your blade up a lot. Okay, and then once you've done that, use your roller to gently smooth out the back, so you have no straggly bits on the sides. Okay, and make sure you do a good job of squishing it into the mould, because you want it to be nice and smooth on the other side. And I'm going to be varnishing these with liquid clay, just in case you wanted to know, because we're going to be baking this, so you need a varnish that is heat safe. Varathane is another one that you could use, because that one's also quite heat safe. Yeah, so you're going to have to use one of the two there, or you can varnish it after baking. Okay, so it's going to take a little while for me to get all of these little spots and things smoothed out. So what I like to do is I like to put it into the mould, then take it out, see what's left, and then use my finger to rub those out, get them all smoothed out and so on, and then I put it back in the mould to finish it off. But I don't want all of these gaps in here. There we go. And just double check on the other side. Okay, and then any that are left will get covered up with the liquid clay. But I do like to smooth out as much as I can. Okay, and I'll make a few cabochons, but this is the one that we're going to be using with our cutter. Okay, so once you've smoothed out the back with your roller, just take your piece out, and there we are, that's pretty smooth. I'm going to put that on a piece of paper, and I will do a whole bunch more, and then when I'm done with all of them, I will bake that at Premo's recommended temperature for a full hour, with a piece of plain printing paper over the top of it, so that it prevents any scorching. And then when it's done, we can coat it with liquid clay, and then we can move on to actually creating our pendant. Now you might want to just go around and just gently smooth the sides, because you might have a few little straggly bits. Not many, but you might have a few. So I'm just gently using my blade to do that. And then just gently use your finger to smooth off the top if you have any fingerprints on there. Okay, and then I'll go bake that. Okay, so I have baked all of my cabochons, and you can see that I have quite a few here. I've done some nice little ones, some fairly large ones, some in-between ones, and then I've got three of them actually. And so now we are ready to start coating them with liquid clay. I wouldn't advise sanding, because of these flakes that we've put in here, it's going to have a fairly rough surface, and so sanding isn't really going to achieve all that much, and it's going to also possibly sand away a few of these flakes. So if I were you, smooth it off before you bake it, and then varnish it. I wouldn't sand it, because it can be more detrimental than anything else. If you, however, do have some problems along the sides, like maybe there's some clay left over, do sand that away a little bit, because you don't want that there. Okay, and so hopefully you can see that it has darkened up quite a bit, and you can see the opal flakes. Now what you want is to put some liquid clay on it, so that it will clear it up. Just let me get rid of those, and I'll just bring one over, and hopefully you can see the difference there. So you'll need translucent liquid clay, and I like to use translucent liquid Kato polyclay. And you can use a brush if you want, but personally I find a finger works very well, and then you don't ruin a brush, because once you've used a brush with the liquid clay, that is a liquid clay only brush. And now just gently smooth it over your bead. You don't want a lot of liquid clay, you just want enough that it's going to cover up any cracks that you might have or anything along those lines. So gently smooth it along, get it to work itself into those cracks. And remember to do the sides as well. And I will do this with all the cabochons that I have. And I like using my finger because I just think it gives a smoother finish than a brush, surprisingly. Okay. And you're going to need a heat gun. I wouldn't advise baking the liquid clay because you can't get it to a high enough temperature that it actually goes translucent to the degree that would look nice. So if you don't have a heat gun or you're not very good at doing the liquid clay, try using Varathane. You'll need to do a few coats, about 4 to 5 coats. And also we want a varnish that is heat safe, so that is why I recommend Varathane, because it is completely heat safe, and so we will be able to bake with that. Okay, and so now I'm just trying to get a nice even coat across this. Okay. Now just dab around here and around there just to make sure that we have a nice coat. Okay, and then just let it sit for a minute or two so that the liquid clay can just settle. And I do sometimes like to use a brush to just tidy up these edges, because it's hard for me to get in there with my finger. Okay, there we go. Right, let's heat gun it. And you'll want it on your hottest setting, but your lowest wind speed. Just gonna turn this around so I can get to it easier. Okay, and now hopefully you can see that I am actually concentrating the heat gun around here, because I don't want to be curing the top just yet. I want to cure the sides first. Just want to fill in a little hole there. There we go. Because once you've set the sides, then it means that the liquid clay will sit on its own and it won't spill over the sides. Whereas if you try to set the top first, all the liquid clay will want to run off. Okay, and once it's cleared up, you want to stop. You don't want to be going and overdoing it because you can burn your clay. Okay, and then just use a knife. Don't pick it up at this point in time because it is still very hot and it can burn you, and it also picks up fingerprints at this point in time quite easily. So just use a blade to gently turn it around, and if you see any areas that are cloudy, just get that with the heat gun. There we go. And that is how you coat a cabochon with liquid clay. And so I'll go coat all of the others. And just before I do that, I want you to see the difference. There's no sanding, no nothing, just putting liquid clay over the top. You can see there's quite a huge difference there. So I'll go coat these and then we can move on to creating our pendant. Okay, and here is what they look like. I'm going to do the little ones later, but for the moment this is what these look like. You might need to give them a quick burnish or a buff. If you have a buffing wheel you can give it a quick buff, but for the most part it should be just fine. So let's see, I've decided that this is probably my favourite out of these three. Yes, definitely. So we're going to be using this one. I'm going to pop that to the side for the moment because we're going to need a texture now. And I'm going to be using my Enchanted Roots texture. And I've dusted this off with a bit of cornstarch before starting. Now just quickly dust the top with a bit as well. And that will help prevent my fingers from sticking in the texture while I press it in. And you want to start from the top or from the bottom and work your way up to the top. And I'm using Pearl White Premo right now on my thickest setting, which is about 4mm thick. Okay. Now just roll that flat. And it should come out pretty easily. So I like to just go around the texture and slowly pull it out. There we go. Okay, and that's what it looks like. Now I'm just gently going to stretch it. There we go. And I'm going to be using this Convex Spearhead. And I want to position my cabochon right there, and now I need to figure out where to cut out my clay. Okay, and so I've got it into the right spot, and so I'm just going to press cutter down and bring that out. Okay, then I will take this cabochon and I just want to move it up just a bit. Okay, and then gently press down. And just make sure your cutter is still around it so that it's not going to get distorted. And this way, your cabochon will be nicely stuck onto the raw clay. Okay. Okay, now that we've got that done, we can move on to colouring. So I think I want this bezel to kind of have a copper tint to it. So I'm going to be using number 16 of my mica powders that I sell on my Etsy shop, but you can use any that you want. So just before you open it, just tap it against the side so that it flattens out the mica powders, because you don't want it spilling over the top. Okay, and then you're going to want a nice soft brush, and just take a little bit. You really just need a little bit at a time, and gently start colouring. And you want to try and avoid getting mica powder on the cabochon. It's not a huge disaster, but you really do want to try and avoid it. Okay, and we're going to be antiquing this as well later, I do believe. I might change my mind, I tend to do that a lot, but I think at this point I want to antique it. So I'm mainly trying to get the tops of the branches here rather than the sides, rather than inside. So try and get the top of your texture. Okay, And just continue doing that the whole way around. Okay, and there we go. So I think we're definitely going to antique this. And so I've just smoothed off all the mica powder. And now what you need to do afterwards is you want a wet wipe and some sort of a stick like a skewer, and just wrap it up on the end just like that, and then go around the edges and just clean off any mica powder that might have got onto your cabochon. And just be careful you don't actually touch the raw clay underneath, because you don't want to be taking off that mica powder. Okay, and you can see that we had a little bit come off over there. Okay, and then that's almost it. We just want to set this with our heat gun correctly before we pick it up. So I'm just going to switch it on to a medium setting on my heat, and I'm going to heat gun it. Hopefully you noticed, I'm not sure if the camera was able to pick that up, but the mica powder actually gets shinier when you bake it, and that's why you need to make sure that you smooth it off correctly. Okay, now just gently do a test. If it feels hard under your fingers, that is good. Let it cool before you pick it up. And in the meantime, I want you to make another one of these textures with the pearl white, and we're going to make a bail. Okay, once it's cooled, gently pick it up with your blade, and your cabochon might pop off. If it does, that is fine. You still have that area marked, and that is exactly where your cabochon is going to go. Okay. Pop that to the side, grab a wet wipe, clean up your mica powder because you don't want that anywhere near here. Then you're going to grab your texture, and I've already made another one and cut out a strip for our bail, but for now we need that. Just dab your finger in the mica powder and smooth it over to highlight your texture. Okay, and we're probably going to antique the back as well. There we go. And then just go with your brush and just smooth in the areas where you spill a little bit of mica powder. That's not a problem. Okay, there we go. Now you want to flip that. Bring this over. And before you do anything, actually, what you should do is you should just trim away any excess bits. So I'm just going to quickly stretch this just a little. There we go. and trim away any areas that aren't your texture. Okay, and then flip it over and pop that on. Gently press, don't press too hard. And then flip again and press around the edges here. And then you can use your cutter, but it's a little risky, so I'm gonna use my craft blade first quickly. Trim away the excess. Then I'll turn this around again and grab my cutter, fit that around and press. Yeah. Then take away any excess, and you might need to go with your blade and just gently trim a little bit around the edges. Just to make sure you have a nice clean finish. Then just before you do anything, go around the edge, make sure you're happy with it. Okay. Then we want to attach our bail, so I'll put this to the side for the moment. Quickly wipe that away. And now, you want to form your bail before you put the mica powder on. So grab a skewer, wrap that around it, trim off where it meets, need to trim off a little bit more. Okay, and it should meet up perfectly. Okay. And I like to use my blade to help join these two together. And this is the part that's going to go up against our pendant, so we won't see that part. Okay, then bring over the pendant, slide this off, find the top of your pendant, making sure that it's in the right spot. Okay, then slide your skewer back in and gently squish. Okay, then bring over your mica powder again and gently dust the texture. Until it's baked, it's very delicate, so just be careful. There we go. And then use your brush to smooth it all off. Okay, and we're going to antique that too. There we go. Then bring over just your liquid clay. Just add a touch in there. And that will help your cabochon bake in there. Position your cabochon in the right spot. Gently press. Pick that up again with the blade. And then go pop that in the oven for a full hour at Premo's recommended temperature. Okay, so our piece is out of the oven and this is what it looks like. So I'm quite happy with how it's looking so far. I also made an extra one so I could test out how I like the antiquing, and I really like it because it's it feels like the backing's way too light for this one, whereas this one it kind of blends in quite nicely. And there's what the back looks like. So I still need to do sides on this one, but that is why I made this one, so that I could test out whether the antiquing looks good. So we're going to antique this one next. You're going to need some black paint, and this is the brand that I am using. I'm just going to pop a bit onto the tile, and we're going to need a brush. And we're just going to start from the cabochon and we're going to work our way out because we don't want to get black on our cabochon. And now I'm busy debating on whether I should spray this, so I might do a test round to see what it looks like on one of the cabochons that I'm not happy with, because I quite like the liquid clay varnish, but I would like to have a varnish on the outside. So I'm going to go and take one of those other cabochons that I have that I haven't turned into jewellery, one of the ones that I don't like so much, and I'm going to test what a spray varnish looks like, and I'm also going to test what Varathane looks like, and I'm going to decide whether we need a varnish or whether we should use Varathane or a spray varnish on here. Because although the liquid clay is nice, I would like to put a varnish on the rest of it, and to get all nice and neat I'm going to have to paint it over the cabochon. Now you're still going to need to put liquid clay on the cabochon because you need to fill in all of those cracks. A varnish like Varathane is probably not going to do that so well. So I still do recommend you use liquid clay on the cabochon, but I'm going to see whether or not I want to varnish the rest. So you can see I'm busy painting it all in black, and make sure that you get all into the gaps because that's the part that we want to have the black sitting in. We're going to wipe it off the top. And I think it's going to look quite nice. And so we do the front first and then finish it off, and then we will do the exact same on the back. Just be careful not to get paint on the cabochon. Okay, and then when you're done, just go around and make sure that you've got all the areas, because if you missed any, that's a bit of a problem. Okay, and I'm just going to paint the bail here. There we go. Now I'll go clean the brush and get a wet wipe. Okay. And quickly before we start, I'm going to bring over an old wet wipe, and I'm just going to clean up this paint because I don't want that sitting here while I'm busy. So I'll just do a quick cleanup. There we go. Now you want to start with a tissue, and you want to wipe away the wet areas first. It's best to start with the tissue and then to move on to a wet wipe. And now you can be fairly aggressive with the tissue at getting the paint off. The wet wipe you have to be a little bit more careful because it can remove the mica powder. And that is why I'm starting with a tissue, because I don't have to worry about my mica powders. And then I'll finish what I can't get with the tissue with a wet wipe. And I'm already liking how this is coming out. Go. Okay, so I've got most of that. Then I just want to go and do the bail here. Okay, then I'll grab my wet wipe and just wrap it around my finger and start wiping. And I'm pressing very lightly. And you'll need to change every now and then because you'll be wiping off a lot of paint. So you don't want that getting too heavy in one spot. So just continually change your wet wipe where you've got your finger positioned in your wet wipe. Okay. Almost done. This is generally the hardest area in here. And then you want to clean up the bail. And there we go. That in general is what it's going to look like. So just quickly wiping this off. Okay, now we've still got the back to do, so I'm going to go and do that quickly, and then you want to let this dry. Okay, so our pieces have finished baking, as you can see, and I have done a test run on the Varathane and on a spray varnish, and I've decided to go with the Varathane. So I'm going to also take a piece of wire, and I'm going to string that through our bail. So that I can hold it and dip it into the Varathane. And then take it out and just let it drain as well. And just give it adequate time to drain. And just also blow through the bail hole as well. There we go. So that it empties out. Okay, and then once it's finished draining, go and hang these wires somewhere so that this piece can sit and dry adequately. You'll want to let it sit for around an hour to half an hour, however long it takes to dry. And depending on how it looks, you can give it a second coat. It isn't necessary to give it a second coat if you don't want to. I probably will end up giving it a second coat, but it's not completely necessary. So I'll go dry this and I'll do the other one, and then I'll show you what they look like when they're done. Okay, so I have just about finished the pendants. I have given them one coat of varnish. I don't think they need much more because I want this to be the shiniest part of the project. Although the other parts have a nice gloss to it, this needs to be the part that catches your eye. And I've gone and taken this one and strung it onto a ready-made rubber cord. There really isn't all that much to it. It's basically got a clasp like this, and you just string one end through your bail, and then that is your clasp. So it's really easy. It takes a little while to thread it through the clasp because I've made a smallish clasp, so you need to kind of push it through a little bit. So I skipped that bit so that it would save time, but there really isn't all that much to it. So that's basically it for the project. I just wanted to put with a nice ready-made rubber cord. You could do the same with this one if you wanted to, but that really is it. So I do hope that this tutorial was helpful to you, and if it was, please do let me know. And if you have some other design ideas, please do let me know as well, and I would love to see what your ideas are. If you make anything with this project, I'd love to see those as well if you would like to share them. So please do share, and I hope you learnt a bunch of tips I will probably do some more opal videos in the future, but remember that you can use this technique with any coloured opal flakes that you have. It will work with just about any. It's just that you basically will get different coloured opal, so maybe try swapping the black with pearl white and swapping the opal flakes for different colour opal flakes, because some of them you get blue, some of them you get purples. There's a bunch of different variations, so play around with this, see what colour opals you guys can come up with, and I will see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.